Spring Boot is revolutionizing how we develop applications. Spring Boot, with its features like startup projects, auto configuration, Spring Boot Actuator is really a great thing. We have created a complete website, www.springboottutorial.com, and we have a number of courses on Spring Boot which give you a complete overview of the Spring Boot environment. We develop a web application, we develop a RESTful web service, and we give you a complete overview of the tool set that Spring Boot comes in. You have a web application. How do you add Actuator to it? It's very simple. Just go to your pom.xml, and if you go in here, in your dependencies, you can add in your Actuator. So this is the dependency for Actuator. Spring Boot starter Actuator. And also you have Spring Data REST HAL browser. So the HAL browser is Spring Boot starter Actuator actually exposes a lot of REST services. And to easily browse through them, I've added in the HAL browser as well. So these two dependencies are all that you need so that we can actually have a visual look into all the stuff that Actuator provides. So just add these to your Spring Boot application and then restart the application. So just start the application up. When the application starts up, you would see that there are a number of URLs that are exposed. So mapped autoconfig, mapped endpoint. So you can see a number of mappings being exposed. Mappings, configprops, metrics, info, beans, health, heap dump, and Actuator. So these are all the mappings which are exposed because we added a dependency called Actuator. So what does my Actuator do? What magic does it provide? So let's launch up Actuator. The default URL at which the Actuator would be launched up is localhost 8080/Actuator. So it's localhost 8080/Actuator. That's where the Actuator is launched up at. So now I'm trying to hit the Actuator. Oops, let me reduce the zoom in a little bit. So now this is the home page of Actuator. So actually this is the home page of the HAL browser which we are looking at. This is looking at all the services that Actuator is exposing. So what are all the services that Actuator is exposing? It's exposing an info service, a bean service, autoconfig, health, heap dump, a lot of services. So let's look at each one of them. Let's start with beans. Beans show all the beans that are loaded as part of our application. So we are developing a Spring application, right? Spring application contains a lot of beans. Most of these are singletons. So sometimes you want to see whether a specific bean is loaded or not. So you want to debug, like let's say in a production environment, you have some configuration and you want to make sure that a specific bean is loaded. How do you do that? You go here. So the actual URL is localhost 8080/beans, and in the HAL browser we are looking at all the stuff that is being exposed. So you'd see that there are a lot of beans that are exposed. The application which we are using is one which we developed as part of a course, and it contains dispatcher servlet, for example. So you'd see that the dispatcher servlet is one of the beans in here. So you would have a lot of other beans as well. You would have a view resolver bean, because so this is what Spring MVC view resolver is present, and you have a bean for error MVC auto configuration. And we also talk to database. So you'd see that there is a data source somewhere in here. Oops, I'm not able to find the data source, or did I type it down? Yeah, here is the default data source which is configured in. So the data source is also available in here. So those are all the beans. Let's go back and let's explore something else. So the next thing we want to explore is autoconfig. Auto configuration is one of the magic things that Spring Boot provides, right? So auto configuration basically enables a lot of functionality without a programmer really configuring for it. So as soon as I add in Spring MVC, a dispatcher servlet is configured. As soon as I add in Spring MVC, error page, a default error page is created. As soon as I add in Hibernate JPA jar, I would get the configuration of a data source for free and the configuration of entity manager for free. All that magic is coming through auto configuration. So if you want to debug what's happening with auto configuration, then this is the best place to come in. You will be able to see all the positive matches, and also if you go below, you would be able to see the negative matches as well. The other things which are in here are, one is health, which would help you to monitor the health of the application. You can look at the heap dump if there's a problem with the application and you want to look at the heap dump. You can look at the environment configuration in here. Mapping shows you all the URLs that are exposed as part of this particular specific service. So I'm exposing a mapping for welcome, a dynamic configuration, a student service, and error. That's basically what I get through auto configuration. And we have all the mappings for slash metrics, slash info, slash beans, slash health. These are all the actuator stuff. And config props show you all the configurable properties that you can configure through application.properties. If you go in, you can see all the stuff that you can configure. So if I want to, let's say, configure something related to Spring MVC. Oops, spring.mvc. That's where it is. So spring.mvc, let's say I want to configure the locale. So I can say go to application.properties, say spring.mvc.locale is equal to that. That becomes the locale, the default locale. And you can configure the locale resolver, spring.mvc.locale resolver, and you can say whichever header you'd want to use as the locale resolver. And throw exception if no handler found. It's false right now, but you can configure that as well. So if you want it to be true, you can say spring.mvc.throw exception if no handler found is equal to false and put it in application.properties, and that's it. So all the options that you have for configuring application properties are present in here. This is config props. The other things you would see are trace, dump. These are all stuff which you can use to debug problems. Trace, dump, and we have heap dump. So those are all things which would be useful when you have a problem. The last one is metrics. Metrics show you metrics around all the stuff which is happening in here. So you'd be able to see how many times a specific service is called. So we are making heavy use of the actuator. You can see that this service is called 7 times. And we call the autoconfig service once, config props service once, beans once. And you can see the status also in here. So we call the actuator service and it responded with the status 207 times. So if there is, let's say, a error thing, let's just create an error. Let's say, let's dummy. This is not a configured URL. So it would give me an error page. Its status is 404. And I'm reloading the page. And you can see that there's a counter status of 404 one time. Now I go and do that again. I get an error page again. And now, how many times did 404 come? 2 times. So you can have all this monitoring built into the application just by adding in the actuator. So this is kind of the monitoring tool. So you know which service, how many times a specific method is called and how many times it returned what status. Thereby you can monitor all the services, what is happening with them, what responses they are giving back and things like that. Not just this, but it can also monitor things like sessions and heap size and memory and all that kind of stuff around the server. These are the metrics. So there you go. So those are some of the important things that you would need to know about Actuator. We looked at Actuator visually by using something called a HAL browser, and this and a lot more stuff is present on our website as well, www.springboottutorial.com. So I would really recommend you to go there. And in 28 minutes, our focus is on making you an expert at Spring Boot. We have created a complete website on Spring Boot at www.springboottutorial.com. The link in the description of video would take you to a page where you find details of all the courses, videos, and the articles we have created on Spring Boot. If you love our videos, you would love our courses too. Our courses have great reviews on Udemy. You can see some of the reviews in here. And there are also articles on basics of Spring Boot, auto configuration, startup projects, startup parent, REST services, web application. All the code examples, we have Maven projects which are present, which you can directly import into Eclipse and start running them, and other references as well. This page would be a great start for you to become an expert on Spring Boot. You might also want to visit our website www.in28minutes.com, all other courses other than Spring Boot as well. Thank you for all the support you are providing us. We would not have grown to 52,000 on Udemy. We would not have such great reviews on courses on Udemy without your support. We would not have been able to grow to 28,000 subscribers and more than 3 million views without your support. We want you to learn and make best use of all the courses that we have. Good luck, and I will see you in the next video or the course. Until next time, here's Ranga from In 28 Minutes signing off.